I am Zainab Okari, and I was 42 years old when my husband decided my quiet life meant I was worthless. I am a Black Nigerian woman, a children's book illustrator who lived in a calm estate on the outskirts of Ibadan, where mornings arrived gently and afternoons smelled of dust, flowers, and warm sunlight. My days were simple by choice. I sketched beneath the mango tree in my small front yard, sipped ginger tea, and let peace guide my routine. People often mistook my calm for weakness. I never corrected them. Before I continue, please like, comment, and subscribe, and kindly tell us where you're watching from. Stories like this remind people that strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it sits quietly, builds patiently, and waits for the right moment to stand. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that need them, especially those who think silence means surrender. That Tuesday afternoon was bright and still, the kind that made the sky look forgiving. I had been waiting for my husband Colonel Adeyemi to return from what he called a business expansion trip to Abuja. I cleaned the house without rushing, arranged his favorite kaftan on a chair, and pulled open the curtains to let daylight flood the living room. I even reheated the pepper soup he liked, confident we would sit and talk like adults. When the door finally opened, the energy changed immediately. Colonel walked in stiffly, no greeting, no warmth. Behind him stood Sola Bamadil, my closest friend since university, the woman who once slept beside me on thin hostel mattresses and promised loyalty with laughter. Colonel dropped a thick brown envelope on the dining table like it burned his hand. "These are divorce papers," he said flatly. "Sign them. From next month, you'll be sending me 3.5 million Nigerian nairas every month. You don't work. You're always home. You'll manage." Sola wrapped her arm around us like it belonged there. Her smile was small, practiced, and cruel. My chest tightened, but my face remained calm. I didn't scream. I didn't ask why. I simply picked up the envelope and nodded. "All right," I said quietly. The shock on their faces was almost amusing. They expected tears, begging fear. Instead, I walked into my sunlit studio and locked the door behind me. Inside, anger replaced heartbreak. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and emailed my lawyer barrister Ao Falad, the woman who had handled my illustration contracts for years. I asked her to review every asset in my name immediately. Then I logged into the private account I had built slowly from book royalties, licensing deals, and quiet international contracts Colonel never bothered to ask about. He used to laugh at my work, calling it small cartoon drawings for children. He never knew those drawings were my armor. I met Sola during my second year at the University of Lagos. She was confident, charming, and reckless with other people's boundaries. She once joked, "Men are more exciting when someone else thinks they own them." I laughed nervously and ignored the warning signs. When I met Colonel in an advanced design elective, Sola knew immediately. When we started dating, she hugged me and said, "I'm genuinely happy for you." I believed her because I wanted to. Years later, we remained close. I designed the invitations for her wedding to Tund Bamadil, a thoughtful civil engineer, at a daytime garden ceremony in Abeokuta. Sola cried while hugging me and said, "If there's anyone I trust with my life, it's you." At the time, I thought it was affection. Now I know it was irony. She never respected things that belonged to other people. About 6 years ago, Sola called me during the day, breathless with excitement. "Zainab, I'm pregnant," she said. "This one is mine." I went with her to her early clinic visits at a bright private hospital. Slowly, Colonel started volunteering to drive her. Then it became antenatal classes, pharmacy runs, evening walks, all during the daytime. I once opened Colonel's notebook and saw neat handwriting. Week 16, vitamins. Week 18, no seafood. Week 20, hydration. When I asked, he didn't flinch. "Tund is always busy," Colonel said. "Sola needs support. You overthink things." But I noticed how he enjoyed being needed. When Sola gave birth to Mirela, it was Colonel pacing outside the delivery room. A nurse smiled at me and said, "Madam, your husband has been very supportive to the baby's mother." Something inside me quietly broke that day. At a daytime barbecue months later, Mirela ran past Tund and grabbed Colonel's leg. "Daddy," she called. I stepped away silently, poured myself a drink, and pretended I didn't hear. Colonel followed me and whispered sharply, "Don't start imagining nonsense. You're too independent. You don't need anyone." In that moment, I realized independence had become his excuse for betrayal. Time passed. Love thinned. Silence grew. Then one afternoon, Tund knocked on my door holding a leather folder, exhaustion written across his face. We sat at my dining table as sunlight spilled across the papers. I hired a private investigator, he said quietly. I thought Sola was hiding money. I didn't expect your husband. Photos, dates, hotel receipts. I already knew the truth, but evidence has a way of making pain heavier. We wait, Tun said, for the right moment. And so, without drama, we became quiet allies in a war Kunnal and Sola didn't yet know had begun. The waiting did not last long. Life rarely gives traitors much time to enjoy their victory. Barely 3 months after Tun showed me the evidence, my body began to fail me in quiet ways I could not ignore. I grew tired too easily. Sharp pains came and went without warning. During a routine daytime checkup at a private clinic in Abadan, the doctor studied my scan for longer than normal. His silence frightened me more than his words. There's a large benign growth on your ovary, he said gently. It isn't cancer, but it's serious. You'll need surgery and long-term monitoring. I nodded, clutching the folder of medical reports as I stepped outside into the sun. I called Kunnal, not because I needed him, but because I needed confirmation of what I already knew. I'll be hospitalized for a while, I said. There was a pause, then a sigh. I'm busy, he replied. Maybe I'll stop by if I can. In the background, I heard Sola laughing. I ended the call without another word. That was the day hope finally died. The hospital room was bright, painted cream, with sunlight pouring through wide windows. I brought my sketchbook with me, not to work, but to remind myself who I was beyond betrayal. I drew children flying kites, girls climbing trees, boys holding lanterns against dark skies. I drew healing into every page. Kunnal didn't visit. Sola didn't call. Only Tun came every week, carrying fruit, books, or quiet encouragement. He never stayed too long. He never asked for anything. During my recovery, I noticed Mirela pulling away. Messages stopped. Visits became excuses. I knew Sola was poisoning her mind, and I knew forcing myself into the child's heart would only make things worse. Love had to wait. Healing always does. One late morning, Kunnal finally showed up. He stood awkwardly in the doorway with a plastic bag of fruit I was allergic to, looking like someone doing charity work. Just checking in, he said. Sola is waiting in the car. His eyes drifted to my drawings. You're still doing these little pictures? He scoffed. With your condition, maybe it's time to rest. Be realistic. I kept coloring. A Lagos-based animation studio is adapting Ebony and the Sky Drums, I said calmly. We signed last week. His expression changed immediately. Greed replaced concern. So now you really don't need anyone, he muttered. I smiled softly. You're right, I replied. I don't. 2 weeks later, while still recovering, my phone exploded with missed calls from Kunnal. When I returned the call, he was screaming. Why is there a notice pasted on the house? He demanded. They say we have days to leave. I remained calm. That house is mine, I said. I bought it before marriage. I paid everything. You never contributed. He shouted about marriage rights and respect. I reminded him we were divorcing. That conversation ended my last emotional tie to him. Barrister Ao moved swiftly. Documents were served. Titles confirmed. Accounts separated. I asked for nothing but distance. Not long after, Kunnal's mother, Mrs. Funk Adeyemi, called me. Please come, she said softly. Mirela is here. There's tension. I went. The living room was heavy with anger. Kunnal and Sola were arguing loudly. Mirela sat in a corner, fists clenched. When she saw me, she stood. Auntie Zainab, she said, then turned to Sola. I'm tired of pretending. We need to talk. Sola tried to silence her, but Mirela continued. The woman who raised me was the one who stayed up with me when I was sick, who taught me to draw, who never lied to me. That woman is Zainab. Tears streamed down Sola's face. I gave birth to you, she whispered. Yes, Mirela replied. But you didn't raise me. Kunnal's father shook his head in disappointment. You've lost something greater than marriage, he said to Kunnal. You've lost your child's respect. I took a deep breath. I've known for years that Kunnal is Mirela's biological father, I said quietly. Gasps filled the room. I stayed silent for her sake. Children deserve peace. I knelt in front of Mirela. You were never a mistake, I told her. You were the light in a dark situation. She hugged me tightly. A calm voice entered the room. It's time I speak, Tun said, stepping forward. He revealed that Sola's divorce papers were drafts. No stamp. No filing. Legally, she was still married. He showed bank records, evidence of joint fraud and illegal transfers. Sola collapsed onto the sofa. Kunal laughed bitterly, dismissing it all. Zainab just got lucky drawing cartoons, he said. She has no real power. I opened my tablet and turned the screen toward them. Primary savings, I said. Nigerian naira 186 million. Gasps followed. That doesn't include international royalties or the animation deal. Last year alone, I earned over 310 million Nigerian nairas. Silence swallowed the room. Sola begged for forgiveness. I declined gently. Friendship sold doesn't regenerate, I said. I only want peace. I took Mirela's hand and walked out into daylight, leaving behind two people who never believed I could walk away. After that day, everything moved faster than I expected. Truth has a way of collapsing lies once it steps into daylight. Kunal lost control of the narrative he thought he owned. His father, Chief Adeyemi, quietly removed him from the family property development business and reassigned him to physical site supervision along the coastal axis near Badagry. No office, no title, just early mornings, sunburn, dust, and labor under men who no longer respected him. Kunal called me once, his voice tight and unfamiliar. I let it ring until silence returned. Sola's fall was quieter but harsher. Her side businesses, fueled by lies and borrowed confidence, began to crumble. Banks froze accounts. Friends disappeared. The attention she once lived for evaporated. She moved from her comfortable duplex into a small roadside lodge near Ojota, working long shifts at a printing shop and delivering parcels in the evenings. The woman who once thrived on admiration now avoided mirrors and conversations. Karma didn't shout. It simply waited. In court, Tund presented every document with precision. Dates, signatures, transfers, and messages. Mirela spoke for herself. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. She wanted stability. She wanted honesty. She wanted peace. The judge granted Tund full legal custody, with limited supervised visitation for Sola. I sat quietly at the back of the courtroom, hands folded, heart steady. This wasn't about winning. It was about ending cycles. Weeks later, I saw Mirela at the University of Ibadan Public Library, sitting by a sunlit window with a translated copy of one of my books resting on her lap. Why that one? I asked, smiling. She looked up, eyes bright. Because one day, I want to help translate your stories into more languages, she said. So children everywhere can read them. My chest tightened with pride and something like healing. My health improved slowly. Follow-up scans showed progress. The doctor reduced my medication and reminded me that rest was not weakness. I returned home, reopened my studio, and restructured my days. Mornings were for drawing, afternoons for emails and meetings, evenings for quiet walks. I reclaimed the rhythm I had once built around someone else's comfort. One afternoon, Tun stood at my gate holding a modest bouquet. I don't want to waste my second chance, he said honestly. If you ever feel ready, I'd like a place in your future. Not as a rescuer, just as a man who respects you. I placed the flowers in a jar on my studio table. I'm not ready to rush, I replied. But I'm ready for honesty. He nodded. I can wait, he said. And for the first time in a long while, waiting felt safe. Isla and I rebuilt slowly. No pressure. No guilt. Just shared meals, art sessions, and quiet conversations. Trust doesn't sprint. It walks carefully. One day, she looked at me and said, "You never made me choose. That's why I chose you." I didn't answer. I just hugged her and let that truth settle. Sometimes people ask how I stayed calm through betrayal. The answer is simple. I didn't stay calm. I stayed focused. I stayed private. I stayed building while others were destroying. Silence is not emptiness. It is preparation. Kunal eventually sent a message. Not an apology. Just regret wrapped in entitlement. I didn't respond. Closure doesn't always require conversation. Sometimes it requires distance. Today, my books sit in classrooms across Africa. My illustrations hang in libraries I once dreamed of visiting. Children write to me about characters who help them feel brave. I live in the same house, but I live differently. I no longer explain my peace to people who profit from chaos. If you're listening to this and someone has mistaken your quiet for weakness, let them. While they're busy underestimating you, build something they'll never understand. Strength doesn't